Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to Eons of Battle, and in this video I want to finish off chit-chatting about what I've painted in 2020. I want to share what I've learned and show off the weirdest collection of miniatures you've ever seen. This year I've really hunkered down and upped my painting game by painting lots of one-off models. I've always painted a lot, but only doing army painting didn't help me improve very fast. I've found that diversifying what I've painted has helped me improve dramatically. So sit back and take a load off as I go through the rest of the models I've painted, what I've learned, what worked, what didn't work, and just sharing the experience. 5 Gene Stealers. These models are Gene Stealers for Warhammer 40,000 by Games Workshop. These models are pure strain Gene Stealers for the Gene Stealer Cult army, not to be confused with Gene Stealers for the Tyrannid army. They're very different. These Tyrannid I bought when I was collecting my Gene Stealer Cult army, and I think I have over 30, and I have painted 1. I painted it on camera for a video, and I think it turned out really nice, but it took me so long, and it was so frustrating to paint it on camera, that I hadn't put any paint on the remaining 30 until now. I painted these 5 guys up on stream, and they turned out really, really nice. At the time, I was really inspired by a lot of different artists and painters online who are using really, really bright colors. And so once I'd highlighted the blue on the carapace up to the level of blue that I had highlighted my previous test model, I just decided to push it all the way up to almost white, and I think it really, really helps the model. Bright colored minis are just more fun, and they look better. For a long time, miniatures the brightest tone would kind of be a mid-tone, but I think pushing the colors up helps a lot because usually, it's easier to look at a model under beautiful lighting conditions, but most of the time you're gaming with a model in a living room or a basement, and so having the bright colors just makes the models look good at all times. And painting the 5 of these guys actually didn't take that long. Painted them up on stream, I think it took, maybe 2 weeks of evenings, which sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. And now that I've done it, I think I could do it much faster. So I think maybe I should just go on and paint all 25 remaining ones all at once. I'm sure I wouldn't get sick and bored of them at all. Similarly to the bright blue carapace, I also painted the skin, which is pink. I painted that a much brighter color. And then all of the pointy bits, the claws and swords or talons, scything talons, I painted a nice bone. And I think these guys really turned out nice. I haven't quite decided on a basing scheme because I think I'm going to rebase that entire army, or at least do something more special with the bases. But I can't wait. I can't wait to put these guys on the tabletop because I do like Gene Stealers. I have these guys painted up in a classic Space Hulk theme, which is a good match for the Gene Stealer cult, and I just love them. I also could not care less about WYSIWYGing these guys. I know there's a difference between their little 5-fingered hands, their rending claws and scything talons, but I just randomed it per model, and I'll just tell my opponent if I'm bringing the scything talons or not. I remember also on one of these guys, I tried to use the spatter technique on the airbrushing that I used on the Chaplain, to get a little bit more texture in the skin, and it did not work. I think there was something to that idea, but I think I would have had to do it from the beginning. I tried to put the spattering on after I had painted the model, and it did not work. But I could see it as being kind of a cool base to work on. Taking your highlight tone and your dark tone and then spattering them onto a mid-tone, I think that actually could be a really interesting effect. But I'm really happy with these 5 Gene Stealers, and it's one of the very few bits of army building I actually got done this year. A skeleton salamander. This model is a skeleton salamander from Cobra Mode. I remember when I first saw this miniature, I knew I had to have it. It's hilarious. It's a perfect little skeleton of a salamander, the same ninja salamanders that I had painted up previously. I also remember that this one was Halloween, and so I decided that I was going to paint it start to finish on camera, on stream, and I nailed it. 3-hour paint job, start to finish. And the basing I did custom right before going live on YouTube. It is hot glue and then with little rocks glued to it to make it look like it's exploding. And I actually have a video on how to do bases just like this. This model printed pretty well, but the chain was horrendous. The chain just didn't print. It probably would have if on another try, but there was no time. So I just clipped it off and I added my own chain and I made it rigid with super glue. And I can't believe it worked as nicely as it did. I mean, this model has, been around. It's been not roughhoused, but it has been held, and the chain, no part of the chain has broken, so I'm pretty happy about that. To paint this model, I think the bone turned out really, really nice, and I used a lot of Games Workshop contrast paints to do it, and I think that helped a lot. I painted it brown, I applied some contrast paints, and then I used some khaki color and some bone white from Vallejo to brighten it up, and I think it really, really looks nice. I would love to get some of those Aussie Arc boner boys from Age of Sigmar and try out this scheme on them. I think part of the reason I love this model so much is it reminds me of like a dungeon crawler enemy from a video game. Like this guy would get taken out in one jump or one blast or whatever the weapon system is in the video game. I just think he's so cute and he's got so much character, even though he's a little evil skeleton warrior. Also, I have no idea how this character is meant to be on a base, because no part of him is in contact with the ground, so I actually drilled a hole in his butt and I stuck a paperclip, and that's what's holding him up. So I would love to see some other people do this model and see how they decided to have him standing. I would bet that they're gonna wuss out and they're gonna glue the tail down to the base, but that doesn't work. He's jumping. His tail wouldn't be touching the base. Overall, this model was just a fun little Halloween project, and I remember painting him up while drinking some hard cider. A spooky Halloween diorama. This model is a diorama I made out of Reaper miniatures for my Halloween Spooktacular. I think this is one of my favorite things that I've just made, period. I absolutely love it. I'm in love with the videos I made on making this. I think they're hilarious. If any of you have seen it, you know I dress up, including makeup, to put this together, and it was a lot of fun. The base is made out of decorative tree bark that I bought from the hardware store, hot glued together. And I think one of my favorite things of all time is the little tiny leaves are actually real leaves. I found a leaf hole punch from Green Stuff World, and that's what I used to make all of the leaves. And one thing I think that helps give them this fall look is after I was done punching all of the leaves, I actually put them in the oven for a few minutes, and that helped to dry them up, but it also made them crispy. I've done a few other leaf punches, and I just glue them down to the base, and they stay completely flat. But once you put them in the oven, they kind of get crispy, and it makes them look much more realistic. This model was so much fun to build and paint. It's kind of freeing when you don't have to worry about how a model is going to be used in game or what size base it's going on. This model is just a whole bunch of metal pumpkins, a little PVC Jack Skellington figure, which I don't usually love PVC miniatures because they're a little too soft, the details aren't there, but this guy's just adorable. And this nice metal haunted Halloween tree. This little pumpkin head character, known simply as Jack by Reaper, reminds me both of Charlie Brown and Jack Skellington. And I think he painted up really, really nicely with a limited palette of browns, oranges, and greens. And on all of the pumpkins' faces, I actually used a neon yellow, which appears almost green, and I think it actually makes them really, really easy to pick out. This model was so much fun to paint, and I love kind of owning it. I like that it's small. One thing that's always kind of kept me from doing dioramas is I don't want a giant thing, but this thing just fits right in my hand, and it's super nice, and it's super cute. I like that the backdrop is kind of shaped like a tombstone to add to the Halloweeniness of it. And I love getting to use my grass tufts and my static grass. I think this model is just phenomenal. I absolutely love it. I think the only thing I might do differently was I had a lot of fun airbrushing on the sky. Once again, using the splatter technique to do the stars. But the moon is a little bit, it doesn't read properly because it's painted onto the backdrop. And so all of the details on the model create shadows on the moon, which wouldn't be there. So I think I could go back and fix it, but I think what I would have done is I would have actually cut the moon out of this and then put a piece of paper and shined an LED or something to make the moon glowing. I think that would add a much, much better effect, but I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. To make the clouds, I actually used a piece of cotton and I sprayed my airbrush over it, and the cotton gives you a nice kind of misted edge. If you were to put down a piece of tape or something rigid, you're gonna get a line of paint. But if you use something soft like the cotton, it still gives you a nice kind of feathered end. But overall, I'm completely satisfied with this diorama. Before we get to the next mini, I want to tell you about our Patreon. If you like the channel and enjoy our content, consider supporting us on Patreon. Over there, you'll get access to exclusive content, help me pick the weird models that I paint live on YouTube, and more. With that out of the way, let's get back to the minis. Captain Badruck. This model is Captain Badruck, an orc war boss for the game Warhammer 40,000 by Games Workshop. This is a model I absolutely love, and I remember buying it kind of a long time ago for my orc army, and just recently I actually got around to finishing it. I did some customization on it. Badruck has a comical pirate hat, and so I actually removed that whole head and replaced it with a mean-looking orc knob head from Spellcrow Miniatures. And I got rid of his pirate cutlass and replaced it with a double-ended chainsaw sword out of the knob kit. This model was super fun to paint. I poured in detail. And one thing I tried out, which was really kind of interesting while working with this miniature, is I actually decided to take each thing individually and I painted it from beginning to end. And this worked out really well. It helped keep me really interested in the model. The very first thing I did was I painted his coat. I painted all the brown on it, and then I painted the cuffs. And then I painted parts of the inside, his boots, his tabard. And I was really in love with this painting everything individually until I was getting close to the end. And then I feel like I was kind of fighting with myself not to get paint on areas that are already been painted and finished. So I think it was kind of a useful thing, but if going back, I think I probably would have painted everything to a nice halfway done and then gone in and done the finishing step. Because there was things like his little towel that he's wearing from his belt was painted done, but there were other areas that were still primer, and I had to worry about getting all of their base colors and their washes and highlights, getting them where I needed them to go, but not getting them on the areas that I'd already finished. I tried so many things on this model. I made the skin almost like a neon green. On his little dick towel, it's camouflage. On his sword, there's checkerboarding, striping. There's lots and lots of grit and grime. I made extensive use of weathering powders. I did some freehanding on his bucket. It says teeth. And one thing I didn't notice until taking another look at the model is his ammo box that's dumped out that's full of orc teeth. He wrote teeth on the bottom. It would make much more sense if the teeth was written where his foot is, but I still think it works. Orcs are dumb. They don't know what they're doing. They wrote teeth on the bottom so that no one would ever know. But I'm super satisfied with this model. Once again, I think this is one of the best models I've ever painted. I'm really happy. It's kind of sillier. My orcs are a little bit more serious. I'm kind of basing them on Mad Max Fury Road. And but this one, because he's Badruck, he deserves some crazy colors and some more outlandish color schemes. And one thing on this orc that I was a little worried about was I decided to go with a tan for the lining of his coat. And that meant that there was going to be tan teeth attached to a tan coat. And so what I decided to do was I actually decided to paint all the teeth with cold colors. I think I used some cold blue grays on all the teeth. That way they would actually stand out really nicely against all of the warms that I used everywhere else. And I think it worked really well. So I can super recommend to do that. If you ever have two very similar colors next to each other, if you take one and use predominantly warm colors, and then you take the other one and use predominantly cold colors, they'll look very separate from each other, and it'll help them stand out. But I am super duper happy with this model. He's a big orc. I guess he's probably an average size for a knob, but just with his giant ass gun and his big backpack banner, he has some real presence on the table. And it's a fine cast model, but mine is pretty much perfect. I didn't have any flaws with it. So, seems like now that they're getting rid of fine cast, they've finally gotten the hang of it. Fallout miniatures. These models are Fallout Wasteland Warfare Survivors Heroes of Sanctuary Hill miniatures. These are more Fallout miniatures that I just had to have. I'm such a huge fan of Fallout. I have over 300 hours in Fallout New Vegas. I own Fallout 4, and one day I might own a computer that can run it. So I'm very excited about that. But this model was just so much fun to paint. I remember so vividly in my head, my character putting on the vault armor that comes with the light armor. I think it's medium armor in the game, but it's just so much fun to have that in a miniature. And one of the things I had a lot of fun painting was I used my airbrush to add on the blue, and I really took the highlighting of the blue, and it's a much more saturated blue than the in-game model that I was looking at. I think this is actually a specific character from Fallout 4, because I found a character model that looked identical. I love some of the fun details like the 10mm pistol and the Pit Boy, which I made glow green with a little bit of my Games Workshop Waywatcher green glaze. They don't make this anymore, and I use it very sparingly because this is a perfect thing to use on computer screens or any sort of green glowing terminal. But this model was good enough that I broke it out. This guy was a lot of fun to paint, and it's another model where it's so small that the paint just came together really, really fast. And I actually think I did a really, really good job on his face, considering how tiny it is. And he even does have eyes. They're not the greatest thing in the world, but they are, his pupils are picked out. If you look at him under a microscope, you'd probably see it. One thing I definitely want to make sure that you guys are aware of is he has a very flat butt. There's just nothing going on back there. And so I actually went in with a brush and I actually highlighted each cheek to make sure that they were a little bit more prominent on the model, because I think that is a failing of the sculpt. The base was a little bit of an afterthought for me. It's nice and sculpted, it comes with the model, but I think it turned out okay. I just threw on some weathering powders and then I thought that doesn't look very good. And then I broke out the grass tufts. Grass tufts always take your base from awful to amazing. They just fix anything. I also threw on some bricks, which they're on there, but overall I think the miniature looks good. I may need to come back and touch up his base a little, but still very happy with this. The dog companions, I think this is a character in the game, but I don't remember. The dog companions are tiny. They're so little. The fur, there is a texture to the fur, but it's so small there's no way dry brushing would do much of anything. So I tried to do some blending, and it was mostly successful, I think. I think if I was painting dogs now, they would be a little bit better, but overall I'm pretty happy with this. And I love that the dog is wearing goggles. I have dogs and I can't imagine putting something over their eyes, but this guy's rocking it. This base turned out a little bit better. I put on some crackle medium to make it look like dry desert earth. And then once again, a couple of grass tufts, and the base is amazing. This last dog is much more fun. It's the same as the German Shepherd, just like the other one, but this one's wearing a whole bunch of body armor, which I painted silver, and then I actually detailed it with some alcohol and pigment powders. I would put on some pigments and then go back in with a silver paint and then put on more pigments until I had them exactly how I wanted them. And I think it turned out really, really nice. I used pigments all over these guys actually. On the base, on these sheets of metal, I used a lot of pigments to make it look nice and rusty. This dog is kind of more fun than the other dog just because he's got so much more going on, but I love him. The thing that is my favorite about this model is the teddy bear. This teddy bear is hilarious. I painted it bright pink so that it would draw more attention, and it looks like it's been attacked. I assume that it is the chew toy of this dog. And what's great is if you have the Army Painter Snow, the Army Painter Snow is just tiny, tiny plastic beads. And it kind of looks like stuffing from stuffed animals. So I actually put on a little bit of Elmer's glue, and I sprinkled on just a little bit of the Army Painter Snow, and it looks like a stuffed animal that's leaking its stuffing. It's one of the greatest things that I've ever done. I've peaked with painting this stuffed animal. But I'm super happy to have these Fallout miniatures. I have a bunch more, I just need to paint them. And if they ever come out with Fallout New Vegas miniatures, I'm gonna have to get the whole line. There'll be no holding back. It'll be an instant purchase. EOD Minigun Operator. This model is the EOD Minigun Operator by Anvil Industries. Anvil Industries is, I think they call themselves the best resin miniatures on the market, and they're probably right. Everything I've bought from them has been absolutely immaculately casted. No bubbles, no miscasts, a little bit of flashing to clean up, but that's going to be true of any miniature. The sculpt is absolutely amazing. And I think this miniature, I kind of just painted it up on a whim. I didn't really expect it to become one of my favorite things, but this is one of my favorite things. This might be one of Oprah's favorite things. I decided to go kind of cartoony with it because I used to play this game on my phone where you were fighting zombies. I think it was called Zombieville USA, but it kind of gave me the color scheme of bright green for the body and then blue for the armor. And I think it really works out nice. And I was painting this up on stream, and some of my viewers suggested to actually do hazard striping on the netting and the stripes on him, and it made the model. It took a little bit of work to paint all those hazard striping, but it made the model. It just makes the whole model. The model would be nothing without it. It is incredible. I love the simplicity of this model. I love how it all came together. It came together very quickly. This didn't take all that long to paint, and it's definitely one of my best paint jobs. The minigun, I remember just painting it up on stream while chit-chatting about Star Wars, but when the stream was over and I looked at it, it was the best non-metallic metal I'd ever done. I wasn't really even thinking about it. I was just highlighting and shading, but when I turned off the computer and looked at it, I was really happy with the results. Non-metallic metal is one of those things is really hard, and before you're good, it looks like nothing. And I think this is kind of showing me that I'm well on my way to getting something that looks like something. This mini also inspired me to do a custom base, and I think this is one of my best basings ever. It's all custom. The road is made of cork, the curb is made out of plasticard, and then the grass is more cork. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. When I originally painted it, it was a little bit flat. It kind of looked like a silly miniature sitting on a model railroad base. So what I did was I took some black paint in my airbrush and I kind of painted a black vignette so that he was in a little bit of a spotlight, and that helped a ton. And then I wanted it to look like he had just fired his minigun, and so all of these little shell casings are just little pieces of a thin plasticard rod that I just carefully cut so they were all the same length. I sprinkled them onto the base one by one with a drop of Elmer's glue and tweezers, and then I carefully painted them all so that one end was closed and then the other end was black to make it look like it was an open cartridge. But overall, I'm really satisfied with how this turned out. Also on the base, the road, the line, I actually mixed yellow paint with a little bit of wall spackle, and then I applied it to the base using some painter's tape, and it worked out really nice. It actually has a little bit of raised texture, which I think makes it look much more realistic. But yeah, this is one of the models that I'm so happy with. I love it. Goliath Ginger. This model is a Goliath Ginger for Necromunda by Games Workshop. This is another model I painted on camera, and I'm super proud of the video it's in. It's about how to take your painting to the next level, and I really dig the video, and I really dig how the paint job came out. It's kind of just classically painted with highlights and shadows, but I really like it. I painted it in classic Goliath colors, blacks and reds and flesh tones. And I think the skin pops nicely. I took it all the way up to a white. And the red, since red is kind of a tricky color because you can't add white to it or else it turns into pink, I actually highlighted all of his red armor with orange as my lightest highlight color. I made extensive use of my Army Painter washes to tone this down, but when I was doing the finishing steps and the finishing highlights, it was all by brush. And one thing that I've been trying to do is I kind of like when things have a little bit of a rougher finish. But the tricky thing with a rougher finish is if it's not perfect, it looks like you didn't do a good job. So you kind of all of your brush strokes have to look very similar. You can't have some areas that have long strokes and then some areas that have very small strokes. And I think I achieved it with this model. I'm very happy with how it turned out. His butt cheeks, immaculate, very nicely highlighted and shadowed. Games Workshop really knows how to do the butts because I didn't have to add any extra definition. It was there for me. I absolutely love the Necromunda sculpts. They're all super cool. I think the only ones I don't like are those weird guys, the skinny guys in the trench coats. Don't love those guys. Don't even know what they're called, but the House Goliath, House Escher, They are super cool, and I have them because I got Necromunda when it dropped because I was super pumped. And I don't know if I'll ever play that game in my life, but it's fun that I have it. And this guy has a revolver that's also a plasma gun. That's just awesome. Nothing to complain about there. One thing I could complain about though is, so this tiny, tiny, tiny little head, his cigar is a separate piece. It's insane. It's way smaller than a grain of rice. Why? Why on earth would they make the cigar a separate piece? As soon as I clipped it from the sprue, I was like, it's probably gone. It's too small to hold it in your hand. What I had to do was I had to take it and use tweezers to set it into his mouth. And then I took my plastic glue and I just touched it. And that's all I could do. If I tried to use super glue, it wouldn't have worked. If I got really unlucky and the capillary action of the glue moved the cigar, there would be no way for me to fix it. So yeah, Games Workshop, don't do that. Don't make pieces that are just impossibly delicate and small. But other than that, wonderful model, very happy with it. Another one for the collection. Can't wait to paint the 9 other gangers that come in the box. And Bad Santa. This model is Bad Santa and his Evil Elves, a 2018 special edition model from Anvil Industries. And what a perfect model to end the year on is a Santa Claus. Not only that, but an Action Man Santa Claus. This guy is, the sculpt is absolutely hilarious. You can't look at it and not smile. He's got a bomb made out of a teddy bear covered in Christmas lights. He has a machine gun. He's chomping on a candy cane like it's a stogie, like it's a big old cigar. He's got his Ray-Bans on. He's got his military armor on over his Santa suit. It is just a hilarious model. I mean, this Santa has guns. His sleeveless Santa suit is amazing. And I painted this model up on stream, and it was tons of fun. I think the only thing that isn't perfect on this model is I don't love that the naughty or nice list that hangs off his belt. I don't like that the script work is etched into the sculpt. I don't think it looks amazing. I get that for most people who buy this model, that's going to be great because you just throw a wash on there and it'll highlight itself and you can be done. But I think if I was going at this model again, I would have gone in with some modeling paste and I would have put it over the names and then done my own freehanding script work. But that's a very minor thing and it still looks really good. Another really fun thing with this model is the machine gun. You don't have to use that machine gun. The Anvil Industries, what they do with all of their infantry is all of the guns are a peg in slot. And so you can actually replace this machine gun with any of the regiment weapons that they sell on the website. I think if I could go back in time, I would probably put an AK-47 on this Santa because I think that's funny. But I like the machine gun it comes with anyway. And it gave me it gave me a lot more room to do some fun freehanding on the hazard striping. And I think I have a lot of these Anvil Industries models, and I think I'm going to try to get hazard stripes into all of them. I think that'll just be a kind of a fun thing to tie them all together with. Once again, this model presented me with a problem where the white trim of his suit is sitting right next to the white beard, and so I had to decide how I was going to paint that so that it didn't just look like white on white. And so I used a brown earth color and then a khaki and then a white to highlight the edges of his suit so that it was kind of a brown color, just much more of a warm color. And then for his beard, I used blue tones or cold tones. I started out with kind of a blue-gray, and then I did a wash with some of the Games Workshop contrast white, which is decent. It does a good job. And then I highlighted it with just pure white. And I think it turned out really nice. I love the way the Santa looks. I think he's hilarious. I can't wait to figure out what kind of a base I'm going to put on him. And yeah, this model was so much fun that it kind of ruined the experience of painting the elves for me. The two elves, Santa's evil elves, they're hilarious. They're great. They're amazing. They're beautiful sculpts. They're very, very well done. But they're not as much fun as Santa. and they're packed with detail, and so it still took me a long time to paint these guys, and after the fun of painting Santa, these guys they just weren't as much fun for me. I didn't have as much fun. I think I painted them well. I think that they're wonderful sculpts. I still got to do some really fun stuff. Like the Molotov cocktail, I painted in such a way to make it look like there was actually liquid sloshing around inside of it. And I'm pretty proud of how that turned out. And on this second guy who's holding this bag of grenades, I actually painted some texture onto his bag as if it's like a burlap sack. And I think that turned out really nice. But overall, these guys just aren't quite as much fun as Santa. But I still like them. Once you have all three of them together though, it really completes the ensemble, and I think it is well worth it. If you want to paint something on the holidays, I could definitely suggest you paint up this guy. Well, it's a decent number of models. It doesn't have the largest footprint on the table, but I can say that these are the best models I've painted in my life. I hope I can keep this trend going. As I move into the new year, I'd like to make a few New Year's resolutions. First, I want to clean up my 40k armies. As much fun as these one-off models are, I would like to finish models that I can play with on the tabletop. Next, I'd like to paint some larger things like statues and busts. I've never done it before. And finally, I want to work on my 2D art. I'm okay, but I'd like to be good. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me, what are your New Year's resolutions? Throw those in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.